This is Ambazonia Calling. News, analysis, commentary, opinion, editorials. Ambazonia Calling is a co-production of the Africa Freedom Network, the Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. Welcome. My name is Ntumfoyn, Herbert, and I bring revolutionary greetings from our studios in Washington, D.C. to all of you, friends of Ambazonia and fellow Ambazonians on Ground Zero and across the globe.
What sin did the people of Ambazonia commit to have leaders who feed them a daily staple of lies and self-aggrandizing propaganda? This is Tani Jude Agwa Ozugen.
Let's all quit this pretentiousness and collaborate with each other the way many broomsticks work together as a broom. This is Willibrat Ade.
Ambazonians must offer what Winston Churchill pledged: blood, toil, tears, and sweat. This is Lambert Mbom.
Leadership by self-exaltation has cursed Ambazonians with too many who, instead of leading in the right, are coward enough to be led by their followers. This is the mechanic.
Cho Ayaba's diplomacy of VUM. This is XXX.
Africa cannot and will not be a testing ground for any vaccine. And the hangover from a colonial mentality has to stop.
When you bully your way into the crown of shame, this is Veronique Vetinfe.
Give conflict zones a fighting chance against the COVID-19. I am innocent here.
Ambazonia, suffering, struggling, and overcoming. This is the monk.
When the Archbishop of Bamenda calls on Amba boys to lay down their weapons, does he speak for the Catholic Church or as a mouthpiece for colonial Cameroon? Find out in The Devil Unmasked. This is Manjam Jutame.
This is edition 080 of Ambazonia Calling, coming to you this Sunday, the 19th of April 2020.
This is Ambazonia Calling.
We've got the very best of wishes for Easter for all of you Ambazonians, and here's Lambert Mbom to present it.
Our dream for a free and independent Ambazonia should keep us anchored to the risen Christ, everlasting hope for those who believe. Our hope should enliven our determination and empower us to work actively, tirelessly, and collaboratively to bring this dream to reality. God acts only in the fullness of His time, and He acts in a way unknown to us, for God's ways are not man's ways. We must, therefore, design strategies to transcend mere optimism and translate hope into reality. It is our Easter wish to you all and to Mother Ambazonia. This is Lambert Mbom for Ambazonia Calling.
Our edition this week is focused on leadership or the lack of leadership within the Ambazonian struggle, and at any time taking anyone measuring their leadership and comparing that to the leadership of Jesus Christ is an impossible order. But that's exactly what the mechanic is doing this week with our editorial.
Easter, we all know, is the culmination of a holy week when Jesus Christ, the teacher, humiliated the who is who's of our time, washed the feet of his followers, hushed Peter's declaration of war by sticking back in place the ear of Marcus, a servant of the high priest whose ear Peter had cut off to defend Jesus. Jesus refused to call in the heavenly army to defend him, as he was led like a sheep to the slaughter. As shameful as many consider his humble birth in Bethlehem, So did he check out, condemned to the most humiliating of deaths, death on a cross. Contrary to the wishes and dreams of his followers who would have loved to see him crowned as a Lord on earth, the Savior, Master, Teacher, and the best leader on earth and in the heavens, led his own in righteousness as defined by God, not hesitating to give himself up as a ransom for us all. It is in humbling himself that he has been exalted. That is how he became the best leader and most influential man earth and heaven has ever known or will ever know. Fast forward to Ambazonia, and who do Ambazonians have for leaders? Well, to put it mildly, we have been cursed to have far too many, a dozen, called leaders who want to be served, not to serve. Too many of them have built a country, nay, a kingdom, and they have set themselves on the throne as the self-proclaimed leaders of a government in waiting or a governing council in the abstract. They have anointed themselves leaders of the war Christ Jesus ordered Peter to desist from pursuing when he cut off Marcus' ear. Whereas Christ has dominion over the world and his kingdom is everlasting, he accepted the humiliation of being crowned with thorns, teaching a lesson that Ambazonian leaders have failed to learn. That is why so many of them, even before they have a country, have crowned themselves in gold and daily dress themselves in the borrowed robes of presidents, field marshals, generals, and what have you. They behave like kings instead of servants over the people they should be serving. They are too big to hear the voice of reason, too important to attend meetings, too self-sufficient to collaborate with others. Leadership by self-exaltation has cursed Ambazonians with too many who, instead of leading in the right, are coward enough to be led by their followers, those who want them raised to the ranks of kings so that they can be the princes, the princesses, the nobles, and chindas of a kingdom doomed by pride. I am calling out those Ambazonian leaders. You know yourselves, those leaders in this revolution who have set themselves on a pedestal too high for the meek and lowly to ever access them. Those who think that we are asking to leave La République because we want to be subjugated to the same kind of tyranny in Ambazonia. Alas, for all those invited to the Ambazonian feast who have insisted to be seated on the high table, when the appointed leaders of Ambazonia will show up, the impostors, and you know who you are, will be dragged out of the high table they have usurped and thrown out of the party altogether. I can already hear the gnashing of teeth. This is the mechanic for Ambazonia Calling.
Just in case you have not yet received and shared some of the Easter cheer, here is some of it from an impromptu choir in the Bo household on Easter night.
No Magdalene, no Salome, no James's mother, no delay to embalm the precious cause straightway. Hallelujah.
Our lead paper and editorial discussed the lack of leadership within the Ambazonian struggle. We're going to see more papers on that leadership topic later in this program. For the moment, here's Lambenbaum just regretting how badly this revolution has fallen.
The enthusiasm of 4 years ago when the current phase of the Ambazonian quest for restoration of independence began, has waned. In the place of zeal to overcome as one people, one love, surrogacy, sycophancy, parochialism have taken control. The enemy has pulled out the joker from his book of tricks and re-engineered divisions erstwhile considered vanquished among Ambazonians and across Ambazonian liberation movements. Ambazonians have erected idols and are falling over each other in what is nothing short of hero and group worship. The army of all Ambazonians fighting as one, in one love, from the beginning, is now as plentiful as the sands on the seashore. Leaders, once united in purpose and in action, fight like angry elephants while the grass beneath their feet suffers. Betrayal is a mild word to describe what is unfolding. The many disillusioned by such show of irresponsibility are wont to ask, so after 4 years of war, bleeding the army, the economy, and treasury of the colonizers, what has Ambazonia really won? What happened for some Ambazonians to turn into kidnappers for ransom? Why are so many locked in such divisions and rancor, accusations and counter-accusations? Why are so many jockeying for illusory positions while others cling to imaginary power? The big rallies Ambazonians used to stage in foreign capitals have become a relic from the past. The doubt is palpable, forcing some of us to draw a parallel between the current state of affairs and the followers of Jesus Christ. The reason I rehearsed these bleak facts was to remind Ambazonians that even in their darkest of hours, they must remember that the story of Jesus Christ did not end in his dark hour on Good Friday. From the grave of prevailing doubts will rise a resurrected Ambazonian spirit of rebirth. Do not be afraid are the reassuring words spoken by Christ to his apostles after his resurrection. They are the same words today that Ambazonians must preach to each other in order to overcome. Ambazonians must offer what Winston Churchill pledged: blood, toil, tears, and sweat. The monstrous tyranny Ambazonians must conquer and break away from is unrivaled in the commission of dark, lamentable catalogue of human rights violations and war crimes. They have a sacred duty to seek victory, however high the price is, for without victory, there is no survival. This is Lambert Mbom for Ambazonia Calling.
Corona, leave us. Corona, who's a yukamoto? Now the cracks again. Go now I've to my, now I've to my. Go now I've to DJ me, every day another issue, every day another palaver, every day another yawa. From pen to pen, that kind of life. Where till we do, Baba. We thought this life could be a place for our game, but now everything is turning into pieces for our pain. Yeah. Yesterday was Ebola and HIV. Today na Corona, who say you come out? Leave us alone, leave us alone, leave us alone. Baba heal us. Some people there for push this over, but wait till it is so. It's not by might or by my power. I depend on you alone.
A number of papers that we broadcast in last week's edition of Ambazonia Calling had the same effect as applying alligator pepper to the eyes of the gods of this revolution. Our team was immediately hit with an avalanche of hate mail. Every crying baby at AGOF-C and the ADF Self-Defense Wing, every surrogate and activist in their ranks, every top official and their grandmother wanted the world to know that Ambazonia Calling had just eaten the forbidden fruit by daring to report anything negative on AGOF-C and the ADF. The ADF top propagandist, who also doubles as the Isa Chiruma of the self-defense group, complete with powers to declare kidnappings for ransom a legal financing instrument, the same person empowered to decree invasions of Bui and the death of fighters like Field Marshal Chacha. The ADF top propagandist Tapang Ivo Tankua was saying, translated the fury of the entire AGOV-C ADF family to Ambazonia Calling. The journalism joke of the century was to hear Tapang Ivo question why Ambazonia Calling did not cross-check the story with the ADF. In other words, with him and his hierarchy. Clearly bruised, the leader of AGOV-C himself, Dr. Lucas Choayaba, dropped his pants to the point of mistaking Ambazonia Calling for Morris, which he apparently has killed a long time ago and buried. To the madding crowd at AGOV-C and within the ranks of the ADF, one thing needs to be said as loudly and as clearly as possible. Ambazonia Calling stands by its story. After the last fortnight in NGOKETUNJIA state, the find and delete campaign by the colonialists is now pounding Bui state this week, and the empty VUM that AGOV-C and the ADF are addicted to has opened a boulevard of infiltration used by colonial forces. That is not information we are asking the ADF to confirm. It is information we know to be backed by facts. And for as long as it takes, Ambazonia Calling will be the last to cross-check a story by calling up officials in a movement whose only stock in trade is lies and propaganda. Who wants to verify a story from sources within a movement that cut its teeth in this revolution by reporting an exchange of gunfire gone wrong, only for Ambazonians to discover the horror of the Guzang massacre? We will be the last to cross-check a story from sources within a movement that can announce the death of their own General Efang, alias Big Number, in order to raise him from the dead even before Jesus Christ himself rises on Easter Sunday. At Ambazonia Calling, we do our homework. When we report a story, it can be taken to the bank. We know just how disappointing it must be for the teen gods of AGOV-C and the ADF, who are used to being thrown the red carpet by 2 for 5 francs yellow journalism experts. Come to think of it, it is not entirely their fault. Today's teen gods were still running around naked when some of us here at Ambazonia Calling fought the tyrant of colonial Cameroon from their own radio station. If we were not intimidated then, is it just the gun that some of these fellows in AGOV-C and the ADF feel they have that will frighten us into self-censorship or silence? The worst they can do for any of us, of course, is to guzang us. I've heard the big joke that some of them don't listen to Ambazonia Calling anymore because obviously they are both critique and are both scrutiny or criticism. Whatever they decide to do is their business, but these apprentice tyrants must know that if they seek to intimidate Ambazonia Calling, Lapiro Dembanga had a response for them. Una never born.
This is Ambazonia. One nation, one soul, one people. Sacrificing, bleeding, and yes, dying if need be, until we kick the colonialists out and enthrone a government of the people in BOYO.
Obey Innocent Chair is here. He's got the first part of our news summary for the week.
An elite unit of the BOYO warriors in Ambazonia's northern zone has successfully gone down the single most feared La République du Cameroon terrorist element known in the area as Musa. Together with his gang of terrorists, the La République du Cameroon thug was reportedly on his way to Mve for another terrorist activity when they were ambushed successfully by the warriors. Reliable sources intimate with his misadventures in Bui say the scumbag who died instantly had been stationed in Bui for over 10 years. He had reportedly imported witch doctors from the northern region of colonial Cameroon to counter the Odeshi fetishes of Amber boys. Above all, he reportedly led the forces of La République du Cameroon who burned down the market at Bankinkai and vowed to bring down Bui. Although Musa was reportedly buried in an unmarked grave in Jakiri Sunday, Bui warriors have reportedly vowed to eventually excavate his body from their land to return to Jakiri. Meantime, his surviving colleagues are said to be preparing a revenge session, but have been arresting any bike riders they can lay hands on. The leadership of the Southern Cameroon's Defense Forces, SOCADEF, under the supreme command of Dr. Ebenezer Akwanga, has expressed its readiness to commit a unilateral ceasefire as long as COVID-19 remains an existential threat, particularly for Ambazonians and the fighters under his command. SOCADEF's willingness to extend the ceasefire, originally scheduled to last through Monday, April 12, not only comes amidst a barrage of attacks from non-aligned armed groups with known hostility to a negotiated settlement of the 3-year armed conflict against colonial genocidal Cameroon. It comes following attacks on a SOCADEF fief in Ediki, near Manfe in the southern zone, by the La République du Cameroon forces. SOCADEF's area commander, General Opopo, confirmed that La République du Cameroon suffered human casualties, adding that the colonial contingent was accompanied by French-speaking mercenaries. Multiple sources, including UN publications and media outlets, from the BBC to TRT World, a Turkish news platform, are hailing SOCADEF's bold position to give conflict zones a fighting chance against COVID-19. Critics point to the noticeable silence of the UN over colonial Cameroon's non-commitment to the ceasefire, a sign that the UN boss is in complicity with the genocidal forces of La République du Cameroon to kill every last Ambazonian standing. A tug of war has been raging between Ambazonian restoration fighters and the genocidal forces of La République du Cameroon over who has lost more fighters, as parties clashed in several villages over what the colonial government of Cameroon calls a reconstruction plan. Government claims Amba fighters fear the reconstruction of villages the government has been denying their forces initially set ablaze is bringing back peace to the war-ravaged territories. While the military claimed attacks in at least 7 villages resulted in the deaths of 13 Amba fighters, Amba defense groups have reported even heavier casualties on the part of the colonial military, in one case citing as many as 27 deaths. The Ambazonia Defense Forces of Cho Ayaba have set yet again a new standard in the Ambazonia War of Independence, declaring what they term ceasefire against sister forces. According to an audio widely circulated on social media platforms, the ceasefire enabled the rescuing of General Cross and Dai from the custody of FAKO forces who were allegedly getting ready to kill the general. It would be recalled that the ADF had spent the better part of 2 weeks lambasting Dr. Ebenezer Akwanga for heeding a call by the UN Secretary General for a unilateral ceasefire that would open the corridors for humanitarian workers to fight COVID-19. The ADF literally equated a ceasefire with dropping of arms or surrender. Paradoxically, ADF is parading the fact of calling a ceasefire against sister groups, begging the question, who is the enemy? Non-ADF civilian voices across Ambazonia have shamed the State of the Forces report issued by Cho Ayaba. From BOYO to BOYO and MOMO respectively, the ADF leader's appraisal has roundly been rejected as seeking to foment discord among local forces that have fought off the invasion of the ADF, largely seen to bring disunity and deaths among fighters than a united front against a colonial Cameroon. You are listening to Ambazonia Calling, your space for educated news analysis, informed opinions, and commentary towards the recognition of a free, independent Ambazonia. I am Innocent here. Stay with us.
Bobe Innocent here is sticking around. He's got the second part of our news summary for the week.
Unidentified and heavily armed gunmen reportedly attacked veteran journalist Chovus Law at the crack of dawn in Bamenda, Ambazonia's northern zone. A speculation is rife that the veteran journalist, who is bureau chief of colonial Cameroon's daily newspaper, Cameroon Tribune, narrowly escaped a kidnapping. The unidentified gunmen, at least 3 in number, sources maintain, made away with the family car. Chovus Law is reportedly unscathed, although shaken by the incident. Unconfirmed reports maintained early in the week that there was heavy fighting in Tenako, MANYU, Ambazonia's southern zone, between La République du Cameroon colonial forces and Amba restoration forces. According to same sources, La République du Cameroon suffered heavy casualties, losing as many as 10 soldiers to Amba fighters under the command of General Animal Pekin and Papi. The reporting also maintained that Amba forces lost Commander Jungle. La République du Cameroon terrorist forces have retreated to their base in Fundong after restoration forces in BOYO acted swiftly on an intelligence tip that the terrorists were headed in the direction of one of the camps. No casualties have been reported, in spite of what an observer described as intense fire. Reverend Fritz Takan is no longer an activist for southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. It is the subject of a letter that the jailed, now former activist, penned to colonial president of La République du Cameroon and allegedly now belated Paul Biya Bivonder. In the missive, Fritz Takan, aka the Bush Hunter, in his plea for a presidential pardon, writes, "Dear Mr. President, I have been tortured and have been through a lot of pain. Many of us are in a similar situation. This has not contributed in resolving the crisis. Please, I would like you to pardon us so that we can seek a way forward together. We need to give compromise and forgiveness a chance. Mr. President, we have held ourselves back for too long. The time to move forward is now. Many people have already died and are still dying, including women and children. We cannot continue to let this happen. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I look forward to hearing from you. Yours sincerely, Reverend B. Fritz Takan, Kondangi Central Prison." Finally, the death count is yet unknown at the putrid dungeons known as Kondangi Central Prison in Yaoundé, Cameroon's colonial capital. At least 2 body bags were discovered in the public washroom and toilet space, even as stories of a potential outbreak of coronavirus in the overcrowded prison broke the airwaves, leading to rioting among prisoners. Humanitarian groups, media outlets, and some observers have been appealing for most of the prisoners to be released before COVID-19 kills the entire prison population. Innocent Chia for Ambazonia Calling.
In other place. From the bottom, take it to the top. The man in the mirror is the man I'm talking to. Intimity. I've been a man to the Calico, Udayilani Bang. Udayilani Bang. One of my fine, one of my father.
This edition of Ambazonia Calling focuses on leadership within the Ambazonian Revolution, or the lack thereof. We've got a special report on COVID-19. Joining us from Germany will be a patient who's just recently recovered. We will be joined from Wuhan, China, ground zero for COVID-19, by someone who's lived through the experience. We will hear the voices of nurses and the voices of professors researching this issue and speaking to the people of Ambazonia on what you can do practically, what you can use at home right now that will be helpful to you, including what you can do with alternative medicine. And there's only one place you can hear all of that. It's here on Ambazonia Calling. It's right ahead. You stay tuned.
This is Ambazonia Calling.
Still ahead in this edition, we have the Devil Unmasked. We have a winner for the Nyamfuka of the Week. And we are not done until we have heard our letter to Joshua. So stay tuned, kick back, relax, and enjoy Ambazonia Calling.
Stay at home, stay at home. Corona de forodo, just stay at home. My sister, stay at home, stay at home. Corona de forodo, so just stay at home.
The Devil Unmasked is next.
Welcome to our special interview segment, The Devil Unmasked, The Truth Out.
Welcome to The Devil Unmasked. As announced earlier in the program, The Devil Unmasked is dedicated to a rebuttal to the sermon preached on Easter Vigil night by the Archbishop of Bamenda, His Grace Andrew Nkea. Here's Barrister Manjong Jutambe.
The Lord has truly risen. Alleluia, alleluia.
The Archbishop of Bamenda, His Grace Andrew Bishop Nkea, had plenty to say in his Easter Vigil homily at the St. Joseph Metropolitan Cathedral in Big Mancon, Bamenda. No doubt one of Ambazonia's finest preachers, Archbishop Nkea lamented the genocidal violence unfolding across Ambazonia.
We are celebrating Easter 2020 in the midst of very disturbing insecurity, violence, and horrendous killings in our parishes. Even as we write this pastoral letter, kidnappings, shootings, fightings are still going on.
Call for an end to the mayhem?
We have to stop killing, cease the violence, stop the burnings, and stop the kidnappings. This conflict has gone on for too long for any one of us to be either indifferent or to seek to justify.
And had plenty to say about peace.
Whatever you have gone through, now is the time for peace.
He cited lavishly from the April 11, 1963 Pacem in Terris.
Pope John the 23rd was very preoccupied about peace on earth.
He referred to the core messages of peace embedded in pontifical missives sent out at various points by Pope St. John Paul II. He highlighted the appeal of last March 23rd for a global ceasefire.
The United Nations Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, appealed to warring parties to lay down their weapons.
And Pope Francis's message aligning himself to the message of the United Nations scribe.
On the 30th of March 2020, Pope Francis said, "I associate myself with all those who have accepted the appeal, and I invite all parties in conflicts to follow up on the appeal by stopping every form of warlike hostilities."
However, and this is where the Archbishop lost Ambazonians, instead of aligning himself with both Guterres and Pope Francis on unilateral ceasefire in order to prioritize the fight against the coronavirus pandemic, Archbishop Andrew Nkea essentially turned himself into a mouthpiece for colonial Cameroon.
I want to make a special appeal to the Amber Boys, but this includes Amber Boys and girls. Whether we think they are right or wrong, it is immaterial at the moment.
Calling unashamedly on Ambazonian restoration forces to walk out of the bushes, surrender, and give up their quest for independence, not minding that the core of what took them into the bushes in the first place remains unresolved.
We are also appealing to the Amber Boys and girls, drop your guns and come out of the bush.
It is the Archbishop's endless meandering into the Holy Book and back out into the dirty world of politics from the pulpit that has left many an Ambazonians, like me, shaking their heads in bewilderment. When did bishops of the Catholic Church transform into water boys for the colonialists in Yaoundé? Far from me any thought that Archbishop Nkea's Easter Vigil homily was entirely in lockstep with the colonialists. But, my God, the Archbishop delivered a message so cleverly aligned to the regime in Yaoundé that one has to wonder, as our people in Bamenda would ask, "Na fufu don tight for Archbishop Yan?" Was it just happenstance? Or is the Archbishop engaged in what some advocates of Ambazonia's independence restoration quest are already calling enemy action?
Barrister Manjong Judambe continues with the rebuttal after this musical interlude.
There's plenty of shows still to come, so please stay tuned. Kick back, relax, enjoy Ambazonia Calling.
Barrister Manjong Judambe returns shortly with the rebuttal to the sermon preached by Archbishop Andrew Nkea.
There is nothing wrong with preaching peace, and I say so as an illiterate in theology and canon law, both areas in which the Archbishop is one of the Catholic Church's finest experts. But is it not clear to lay Christians like myself that the peace of which Christ taught, the peace the world cannot give, is not the same peace as Archbishop Nkea equates to the end of violence and bloodletting in Ambazonia? Did Christ himself not teach that because of his coming into our world, because of knowledge of the truth that he delivered, the world will be at war, with son rising against father and mother fighting with daughter in defense of the truth? How indeed can the Archbishop of Bamenda advocate the straightforward and simple surrender of Amber Boys, and in the same homily fail so woefully to call on colonial Cameroon to withdraw its genocidal forces from Ambazonia? How can the Archbishop recognize the right of colonial forces to use violence in self-defense and yet fail to acknowledge that Amber Boys must enjoy the same right along with every single Ambazonian who is confronted by the genocidal savagery from the Biya regime?
It is important for each military man and woman, therefore, to realize that whatever situation they face, except in self-defense, human life remains sacred and dignifying.
As a jurist, why does the Archbishop believe that Mr. Biya's soldiers' right to life trumps that of Ambazonians in general and the Amber Boys and girls in particular?
Stop terrorizing and stop killing the very people you claim to be defending.
How can Archbishop Nkea preach these words and not expect Ambazonians to wonder if one of his missions is the furtherance of the subjugation and misery of the people of Ambazonia? How could the Archbishop stand in the sanctuary of the Most High God in Bamenda and try to confuse God by presenting the one-sided pro-CPDM rallies he participated in across Ambazonia, the so-called peace caravans, for the kind of peace God speaks to us in his holy book?
Remember, Jesus told his apostles, "In the world you will have tribulations, but be brave. I have overcome the world."
Pa John Foncha of blessed memory once reminded colonial Yaoundé politicians that Bamenda is most slippery during the dry season. God forbid that the teachings of the Word of God and of the Church should suffer the same slippery effect at the hands of anyone, talk less of the hands of the Archbishop of Bamenda, too eager to show support for the regime that may have compromised every bishop by paying them an annual allowance, by funding church projects with generous donations stolen from the taxpayers, and who may have finally recruited the clergy in a campaign, even at Easter, to keep captives locked up forever and to stampede the people of God in Ambazonia into more subjugation. The appeal of Archbishop Kea for the people of Ambazonia to surrender, for schools to resume under the domination of the colonialists,
to allow all our schools to go fully operational by September 2020.
For the diaspora to stop shining a light into the darkness of injustice in the Cameroons is dangerous for the church's own survival in Ambazonia.
Barrister Manjong Jutambe continues with the rebuttal after this musical interlude.
There's plenty of shows still to come, so please stay tuned. Kick back, relax, enjoy Ambazonia Calling.
Barrister Manjong Jutambe returns shortly with the rebuttal to the sermon preached by Archbishop Kea.
In 1994, the Catholic Church in Rwanda thought it could take sides with the genocidaires in Rwanda. The lessons of Rwanda, of a Catholic Church to which too many Rwandese have today turned their backs, must be learned by the Church in the Bamenda Ecclesiastical Province in particular.
We also need to address our brothers and sisters in the diaspora.
It is sad that Archbishop Kea rolled out the cheap political trick of trying to divide Ambazonians between those who live in the diaspora and those who live in the homeland.
We must honestly say to them that some of them have ignited the fire with inflammatory language, distorted facts, and thereby fooled us to fight each other, keep our children out of school, while they went about their lives undisturbed and their own children going to school.
It is a very godly thing for the diaspora to want the same good things for the children of Ambazonia who live in the homeland as for our children abroad. They deserve no less, and the diaspora deserves praise, not condemnation, for refusing to join the bishops in talking rather than practicing social justice, for refusing in merely watching the poor and the most vulnerable people of Ambazonia crushed by the monsters and savages in power in Yaoundé. It is as godly as God living in the heavens and yet caring enough for us sinners in this world to send his only begotten Son to rescue us from sin. What Archbishop Kea is essentially inviting Ambazonians to do, by surrendering, would be the equivalent of Moses taking the side of Pharaoh in Egypt, to the point of asking the people of Israel to accept their status as slaves, instead of taking the long desert crossing to a homeland of their own. Is this truly what the Archbishop of Bamenda expects of his people?
Barrister Manjong Jutambe continues with the rebuttal after this musical interlude.
There's plenty of shows still to come, so please stay tuned. Kick back, relax, enjoy Ambazonia Calling.
Barrister Manjong Jutambe returns shortly with the rebuttal to the sermon preached by Archbishop Kea.
Archbishop Kea and the colonialists in Yaoundé, who are now celebrating his homily, must know this. The most important things for which Ambazonians found themselves forced into a war by the Biya regime remain non-negotiable. Ambazonia is in revolt and on an irreversible path to self-determination and total restoration of independence, because the enslavement of a people by another was as wrong in Egypt under Pharaoh as it is in the Cameroons under King Beer. The injustice of being treated as second-class citizens is as unacceptable in the Cameroons as it was in Egypt.
Justice is basically the respect of fairness, giving each person equal opportunities and rights, letting each individual have what is his right.
The obligation to defend the truth of our history and our dignity as a people of Ambazonia, children of God in our own and full rights, not under French Cameroon citizens, remain non-negotiable. Anyone who, like Archbishop Kea, mistakes the current drop in hostilities in Ambazonia's war of independence on account of the COVID-19 pandemic as the end of the game, not the halftime before the next phase, is akin to the man who lets out his goats in the village before the tiger roaming the village has been successfully hunted down and skinned. Nonetheless, he nailed the argument well that there would be no peace without justice in the Cameroons.
The Catechism tells us that peace is not merely the absence of war. It is not limited to maintaining a balance of powers between adversaries. Peace cannot be attained on earth without safeguarding the goods of persons, free communication among peoples, respect of the dignity of persons and peoples, and the assiduous practice of fraternity.
Gladly, he understands that even a return to calm and order of the past would be unsustainable without justice.
There can be no peace without justice. All the prophets of the Old Testament were convinced that there could never be peace as long as there were injustices among the people. That is why the prophet Amos in particular, often known as the prophet of social justice, was hard against anyone who did not respect justice and treat other human beings with dignity.
This is not a lesson anyone can teach the Archbishop.
Peace is a gift of God because God is peace.
In fact, he is anointed as teacher to the people.
Peace is the consequence of repentance, forgiveness, and reconciliation. This is the official teaching of the Catholic Church, as expressed in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 2305, which states that peace is the work of justice and the effect of charity.
That is why the preacher cannot split hair over what is politically correct in the eyes of the regime and what is truth in the eyes of God.
We are all brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, children of the same God, and therefore we must seek justice and peace for all.
The people of Ambazonia know better, want better, and certainly deserve better than a piece of the graveyard. Any politician in Yaoundé or Boya campaigning from the halls of power in Yaoundé, or from the temple of God preaching in a three-piece suit or in a cassock, who kowtows to the Yaoundé genocidal cabal, have been forever vomited from the midst of Ambazonians. Alas for you, if you were to mislead any of these little ones, says the book of God, it were better for you that a millstone was cast around your neck and you were thrown into the depth of the sea.
We are all human beings, and there is no human being who is more human than another. Therefore, we all share an equality in dignity, and this is the basis of justice.
What Catholic Christians in Ambazonia need are their bishops to be unapologetic in their defense of the poor, downtrodden and captives as directed by the word of God. Not pastors willing to fit into a role that a certain Paul Atanganji keeps jealously. No priest should act as the mouthpiece for a colonialist, for there is no such thing as holy damnation. This is Manjong Jutambe for Ambazonia Calling.
The only way we will obtain what we want is to sit on the negotiating table, because history is on our side. Legitimacy is on our side. So far, morality is on our side. Geography is on our side because we have the international boundary treaties. So we cannot be scared to negotiate. You will never be able to conquer us through arms. It will never happen.
Yeah, yeah, lonely, but this thing I must to talk, oh. Yeah. All my people, they for bush, oh. And our children are they go for school, oh. But nobody fit to talk, oh. We get to plenty, so many things where we really want to complain to you. See these people where they kill us, not the people where they get for protect we, yeah. Our children, they for prison. Our leaders, they for prison. Now they calling for dialogue. Now who and who go talk, oh. That's why we pray to God. Heal our land, heal our land, heal our land. Cause all our people are dying, and our mothers are crying. Heal our land, heal our land, heal our land. Cause all our children are dying, and our mothers are crying.
Ambazonia is stuck in recolonization, that we know. It is stuck in annexation by La République, that we know. It is facing a genocidal violence, that we know. What Willie Brotade points out to us in the next paper is that it is also suffering from leadership by the blind.
There is this 19th century poem titled The Blind Man and the Elephant by John Godfrey Saxe. It is the story of a group of blind men who have never come across an elephant before and who learn and visualize what the elephant is like by touching it. The first verse goes like this, quote, "It was 6 men of Hindustan, to learning much inclined, who went to see the elephant, though all of them were blind, that each by observation might satisfy his mind." End of quote. The rest of the verses go on to talk about how each of the blind men perceived the elephant to be, depending on the part he touched. So the first one thinks the elephant is like a wall. The second thinks it is like a spear. The third says it is like a snake. The fourth feels it's like a tree, while the fifth thinks it's like a fan, and the sixth man believes it is like a rope. The penultimate verse continues, "And so these men of Hindustan disputed loud and long, each in his own opinion, exceeding stiff and strong, though each was partly in the right, and all were in the wrong." The poem ends with a moral lesson, quote, "So oft in theologic wars, the disputants, I ween, rail on in utter ignorance of what each other mean, and prate about an elephant not one of them has seen." End of quote. The blind men can be compared to Ambazonian leaders and their different groups who are blind and ignorant but still think and stick to their various views and positions. In their ignorance, they have become wrangling and disputatious, with each side maintaining reality is what they perceive it to be. Just like the men of Hindustan rail on in utter ignorance, they have each given their own definition of what independence for Ambazonia is and the best way to achieve international recognition, with each side proclaiming that theirs is the only way. In the past year or so, these perceptual differences have so affected our judgment to the point where we have almost forgotten who the enemy is and are instead involved in an ideological blind man's buff. In spite of the fact that none of these leaders has ever led any country to independence before, they prate about leading Ambazonia to a place none of them has ever been before. So, my appeal to all Ambazonians, particularly those leading the various groups or factions and their surrogates, my appeal is that we should all be humble enough to understand that we don't know what we don't know. All we think we know is based on our faulty perception that was informed by the part of the struggle through which we were introduced to this entire experience. So, let's all quit this pretentiousness and collaborate with each other the way many broomsticks work together as a broom to sweep, which they can't do individually. It is high time we all recognize that no single group can do this alone, because left to our devices, we do not possess all of the expertise in one place to make our dreams come true. For like the 6 blind men, we are mostly familiar with the part of the struggle that we are familiar with through blind touch. May the hope that Easter brings help us to overcome our partisan prejudices and allow us to turn our attention to the only task that counts, which is to liberate Ambazonia. This is Willibrod Ade for Ambazonia Calling.
This week, Ambazonia Calling is brought to you by themissionstribune.com, compassfreepress.com, and africafreedomnetwork.com.
I say hand in hand, we can make it through. These rough times are getting out of hand. Side by side, walking through. I think it's only our obligations. Listen to the voices of our fathers calling for oneness. People them talking, thinking wrong things about that this bull charge, and everything will come true. Hey, every day, suffer, suffer, suffer. Hey, hey, every year, the things my eyes they see. Suffer, suffer, yeah.
I am Innocent here, and you are listening to Ambazonia Calling.
Continuing our series here on leadership of the Ambazonian cause, Tanya Jude Agwa-Uzugen says it is not only about the absence of leadership, it is also about the satanic vision of certain leaders. Ambazonians are trapped, Tanya Jude Agwa-Uzugen argues further, by leaders who inflate their success, who claim battle victories because they want to reap where they did not sow, and who endlessly make promises they cannot honor.
Our people have a way of pleading their innocence. Now, we've been killed Jesus. We'll hear them say when they feel their luck is running out and too much trouble is hitting them in the face. Such are the times the people of Ambazonia live through today. And the question is, what sin did the people of Ambazonia commit to have leaders who feed them a daily staple of lies and self-aggrandizing propaganda? Why are they saddled with so stingily narrow-minded leaders, disproportionately focused on their political ambitions, over and above the common good? Why are Ambazonians so gullible to their weapons of mass deception and so ready to be infected by the pull-them-down syndrome, the satanic virus they carry? Putting everyone in the same basket is being unfair, of course. So let me, at the well-known risks of inviting more hate mail, state that no movement in this revolution has crucified the truth than AGOVC and the ADF. You will need an entire program to catalog every lie, but here is an abridged short list of the 1,001 half-baked juicy lies the ADF has told with a straight-line face. Restoration forces in Oko take down gendarmes, and before they know it, the ADF is on air taking credit. The Marine Force of NGOKETUNJIA can hardly post a video of them crossing the waters in Bambalang on WhatsApp, then the ADF is out on mountaintops, claiming these are their forces. Before the 7 kata of Bafut have even had time to wipe the sweat off their forehead after winning a battle against La République, and the ADF claims they did it. Even when La République blows off their own jeeps in what they advertise as landmines in Manfi, the ADF has screamed, "We did it." South African police cannot uncover an arms cache and arrest the criminal gang behind the weapon, then the ADF is online bragging about those same weapons being war gear the ADF has recently delivered to Ground Zero. AGOFC and the ADF have brandished these lies with unperturbed arrogance. Worse, they have done so and continue to do so with a sense of entitlement to spinning falsehood agogo. This is Tani Jude Agwa Ozugen for Ambazonia Calling.
Hello, good people of Ambazonia. This is Willibrod Ade with Ambazonia Calling.
I am Innocentia, and you are listening to Ambazonia Calling.
This is Tanya Jude Agwa Ozugen. You are listening to Ambazonia Calling.
Hello there. This is Manjong Jurambe.
This is Lambert Mbom, and you are listening to Ambazonia Calling.
Daniel Jude Agwa Ozugen is a guy who knows how to whip people with his tongue. In this next paper, he argues that too many of Ambazonia's leaders are dressed in borrowed robes, are running schemes that faymen and scammers would be jealous of, and very sadly are willing to sacrifice anything unless victory comes through them and by their name.
Some in this revolution have felt so inadequate unless dressed in PhD robes. Even if graduation was still years to come, it is with victories in battles as with graduating with those PhDs before even enrolling for the course. AGOFC and ADF are, sadly, not alone in this Kuba Dokfao Big Pass You show. Ambazonians have seen the femania of killing thousands of bee soldiers in LEBIALEM by the Red Dragons without ever once managing to take a single picture or video of slain enemy soldiers. The accidental burning down of Sonara had to be claimed by, you know who? Even when La République soldiers fire at the passenger plane coming in to land at the Bamenda airport, there has been one of us to run to microphone and say, "We did it." Talk of shooting oneself in the foot. On the shifting sands of such falsehoods, Ambazonians were told early last year to expect La République to be defeated within a couple of months. That was back in May 2019. We are still waiting. An update was issued. We are still waiting. Ambazonians were told to expect to see La République defeated, humbled, and chased out of Ambazonia by the end of January 2020. We are still waiting. What is not false at all is the fact that to every big, loud-sounding promise proclaimed from Facebook has been attached a new fundraising campaign. There was the My Trip to Boya campaign, which is the original sin of thieving from the People's Revolution, complete with its Kapak accounts and websites designed with money tributaries flowing into and enriching the pockets of the scammers. The ills of My Trip to Boya would have been seen enough. Alas, there were more schemes. Everything by way of natural resources in Ambazonian subsoil was auctioned off to the Foley and Hawk law firm in a retainer agreement that read like the French Cooperation Accord. Not to be outdone, someone got caught red-handed on London Bridge, back in hand, arrived freshly from Norway to mortgage all of Ambazonia's oil. Activists based in Belgium fought and lost a battle to hold the money back for funding geared towards the so-called National AK-47 campaign, followed by the launch of those independence dues. Then the amber coin was rolled out in the name of the same treasury of Ambazonia that Skapak claimed to be. Then there was Bang of Ambazonia, the Contender Force, the Sniper Project, the PIN campaign, and just yesterday, as our people will say, they launched the Takeover Fund. The secret truth about each of them is that donations have gone into a bottomless hole. with audit, unearthing, brazen swindling, open thievery, runaway kleptomania, and chop-broke potism, a la Pobia. Truth has no value in this revolution, it seems. Yet it must be spoken however offended the apostles of falsehood may be at hearing it being rehearsed. The real dunderhead in these endless operations of Tico Drink Kumbadrong have been the Ambazonian donors, who keep putting new money after bad, while the thieves in this struggle continue to steal without remorse. Ambazonians are wise people. That much I know. But for the love of me, can Ambazonians tell me what wisdom there is in trusting the fox to guard the hen house? This is Tani Jude Agua Ozugen for Ambazonia Calling.
We are the Amba people, don't you know us? We are the Amazonia, don't you know us? If you want to know us, you must come in Ambaland. Don't you know us? We are the Amba people, don't you know us? We are the Amazonia, don't you know us? If you want to know us, you must come in Ambaland. Don't you know us? We are the Amba people. Don't you know us? We are the Amazonia. Don't you know us? If you want to know us, you must come in Ambaland.
Hello, good people of Ambazonia. This is Willibert Ade with Ambazonia Calling, reaching out to you to remind you to adhere to all the directives given by the World Health Organization to fight against this coronavirus. It is real, it is deadly, and it is killing people every day. So please, don't shake hands, wash your hands with soap and running water. Stay away from gatherings of more than 10 people. Stay safe, save a life, save your life, and save the lives of all those around you. Thank you.
Every time Ambazonians have learned that there were clashes between sister forces supposed to be partners in the fight against the colonialists from Yaoundé, the one thing we have heard associated with almost every deadly clash in Ambazonia has been the claim that the forces guilty are coming from the ADF. All too often also the ADF has said they came in peace. It only turns out that the outcome is tragic. Here's Bobe Innocent here with a little review of some of the many times when the ADF has said they came in peace and the outcome was war.
The ADF has not stopped proclaiming that their forces went to Guzang in peace and for peace. The outcome, though, was the macabre Guzang massacre. The ADF to date claims that fighters executed with their hands tied to their backs were the victims of a gunfight gone wrong. And they want Ambazonians to believe, lest they accuse all of you of being Thomas. The now disgraced General Nambere says the ADF came for a peace meeting with him, only for Nambere to end up detained, even awaiting execution until he was rescued by Good Samaritans, according to persons fully briefed on these happenings. The ADF dropped the pretense of coming in the name of peace when it came to hunting down the late Field Marshal Chacha in Bui State. The ADF openly advertised their intention to kill him. The fact that the colonial forces of La République got to and killed Chacha before the ADF could get to him changes nothing in their intention. The ADF claimed to have come in peace to Yoke outside of Muyuka before they arrested and ousted Grandpa, the Sokadef commander in that county. It is also in the name of peace that the ADF says it has been carrying out operations in Kugwe, where their latest admission is that indeed La République B terrorists have infiltrated the ranks of our self-defense forces. Do not laugh at this.
Boy, oh my God.
This is the same ADF confirming, when it is convenient for them, the same fact reported last week by Ambazonia Calling about BE officers working as part of the find and delete operation that are disguised as our self-defense forces, notably as ADF forces. It should sadden every Ambazonian to know that every time the ADF is reported to have come in peace, the outcome is war. The only other force, I repeat this, the only other force that Ambazonians know, which also claims to be in our homeland in order to restore peace, but whose actions every day lead only to more pain, misery, torture, death, mass slaughter, and genocidal violence among our people, is the colonial army of Paul Biya B. Hitler B. von der. That this comparison can even be made with any Ambazonian restoration force is, indeed, very sad.
Just before you go, Bobe Innocentja, I would like you to hang around and answer one big question that I have, and I think Ambazonians have. Are these accusations of Amba on Amba violence always directed at the ADF? Is the ADF the only group to blame in this revolution? We will hear your answer to that question after this brief musical interlude. Don't go anywhere.
Deus te abençoe e te guarde, faça resplandecer seu rosto sobre ti, te mostre sua graça e te dê paz. Que Dieu te bénisse et te garde, que sa face luise sur toi et t'accorde sa grâce, qu'il tourne sa face vers toi et te donne sa paix. The Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace.
Before that musical interlude, we had asked Bobe Innocentja to explain if AGOV-C and the ADF are the only movements in this revolution that have attacked other groups. Are they the only ones guilty of Amba on Amba violence or accusations or attacks?
Ntumfoyn, the short answer to that question is that it is not only the ADF that has been accused. Sokadev has been accused by the ADF of attacking their forces and vice versa. The Red Dragons have accused the ADF of attacking their forces, and the ADF has provided credible evidence that their forces are the target of unjustified aggression from the Red Dragons. This week, the restoration forces of Balignona reported the waylaying and killing of their forces reportedly by the ADF in Momo State. This is therefore not about picking on the ADF, although we know its leaders, surrogates, and supporters will not hesitate to throw stones for lack of bullets at us. We acknowledge that this bad behavior is widely shared, notably among those who are in this revolution only for their chosen leader or preferred movement.
Now help me here a bit and help all Ambazonians refresh everybody's mind here. Where did this all come from?
The root cause of this Amba on Amba violence is, no doubt, the shameful decision taken by the FAKO-led IG group, a la Paul Biya, banning groups like the ADF and Sokadev on ground zero. As harmful as that decision has been to the revolution, it has not been rescinded by the IG group. just as there have been no recanting of the decision by tribal zealots demanding that forces should be present only in the state from which its commander originates, or other stupid stipulations to the effect that each state, county, or local government area should be an island unto themselves. These are decisions that have contributed enormously to the hostilities among Ambazonian self-defense groups.
And all this is about power, trying to share the elephant before we have even killed it.
It is truly unfortunate that the IG group and AGOVC are locked in these shameful, classless, tactless tussles for what is, all said and done, mere illusionary power. The power drunks seem to have issued themselves a license to bait Ambazonians into violent do-me-I-do-you clashes, leading to heart-wrenching loss of life. Each side has been as satanic as the other, using their propagandists to sell fake reports of death supposedly inflicted by the rival camp. It was the case when the AGOVC camp, led by a certain Eric Tato, rolled out stories of 23 ADF fighters being slaughtered in Bui State, all without evidence of any kind. Pro-IG propagandists sold the fake story this week that over 30 had been slain by the AFDF in Kugwe.
The fact that these two are fighting each other seems to suggest that every one of them believes they can destroy the other.
IG-affiliated self-defense groups will never, ever crush the ADF and AGOVC-affiliated self-defense groups on ground zero, and vice versa. And all attempts, past, present, and future, to achieve this objective only harm our restoration quest and prove how undeserving of leading Ambazonia such decision-makers are. This is Innocent here for Ambazonia Calling.
If you have an idea that you genuinely think is good, don't let some idiot talk you out of it. Now, that doesn't mean that every wild notion you come up with is going to be genius, but if there is something that you feel is good, something you want to do, something that means something to you, try to do it. Because I think you can only do your best work if you're doing what you want to do, and if you're doing it the way you think it should be done. Just do your thing, do it as well as you, that's the important thing. Don't shirk. Whatever you do, give it your best shot. You'll be glad you did. Exactly.
Ambazonians were once asked to look to a peace institute based in Brussels, Belgium. Salvation was going to come from there, hallelujah. Then there was Basque Country, the diplomacy of asking for independence from those who did not have and who had given up on it. It is called the diplomacy of VUM, and XXX is here to talk about it.
It is not news. Everyone knows that AGOVC and the ADF have been vehemently opposed to the Swiss-led process from the very beginning. What is news, though, is this latest claim from the leader of AGOVC, Dr. Cho Ayaba. When Dr. Cho Ayaba claims that the proposal from AGOVC to overhaul or overturn the Swiss-led process was not only submitted but accepted, the question is, what has stopped this his brilliant plan, submitted and accepted, from being implemented? There are other questions, too many and too complicated for Cho Ayaba to bother to address. For example, who did AGOVC submit their plan to? They will not say, which generally means they submitted it to themselves and accepted it themselves, which alone explains why a plan could be accepted and not implemented. How delighted Ambazonians would be if a far better plan from Dr. Cho Ayaba were to replace the Swiss-led process and get Ambazonia moving forward. Or are we dealing with another stillbirth, dead on arrival plan by Ague of C. It will not be the first time Ambazonians are served stillbirth plans by Ague of C. Who has forgotten how Ague of C had the road to BOYO going through Basque country in Spain? Basque diplomacy, anchored on a region of Spain that has given up its own quest for independence, was supposed to be Ambazonia's road to Damascus, the road we needed to travel in order to achieve independence, until it was not. Basque diplomacy, complete with its ambassadors like Capo Daniel, appointed in the Seseko Ayotabe style, lasted but a day under scrutiny. Oh, and before I forget, it was replaced by Dr. Cho Ayaba appointed Norwegian experts who were going to come on a white horse to save Ambazonians. As our people say, we have suffered. This is XXX for Ambazonia Calling.
Stay tuned. Ambazonia Calling will be right back with more news, analysis, commentary, opinion, and editorials.
Ambazonians, if you dread La République du Cameroon, even more should you dread COVID-19. Take precautions. You already know that La République du Cameroon does not even care for its own people. So how about Ambazonians? This is Lambert Mbom, and you are listening to Ambazonia Calling.
It could not be repeated often enough. The coronavirus has changed our world and the way we will live our lives going forward. But even as the international community, even as the entire world focuses narrowly on defeating this public health threat, so long as the restoration of the independence of Ambazonia is delayed and freedom for its people is denied, so long as the peoples of Africa living in Ambazonia are under colonial subjugation, the rest of Africa will just be struggling, suffering, and not quite overcoming. Here's the monk from Ibali Kumato.
Everyone has a story to tell. They just don't know how to tell it. The stories of Ambazonia citizens spanning generations going back centuries, preceding colonization, are stories of suffering, struggling, and overcoming. It is a repeated cycle from generation to generation. It is the story of humans. Each region of the world has its own special way of negotiating with each of these steps in the cycle. Africa has a long history of suffering and struggling. Overcoming is still a work in progress for Africa. Ambazonia is that work in progress. The people of Ambazonia have borne the brunt of post-colonial miscalculations and outright cheating in the international public square. What makes the plight of Ambazonians even more pitiful is that a so-called civilized European country, France in this instance, unashamedly took advantage of its pre-colonial powers to throw a dark shadow on the independence and freedom of 8 million citizens of a former colony of Britain, British Southern Cameroons, which is now known as Ambazonia. And the French did this by using its stranglehold on French Cameroon to install and perpetuate a policy of occupation of British Southern Cameroons by proxy, against the express wishes of the people of Ambazonia. Now, from the get-go, this led to verbal, active, and now armed opposition to Franco-Cameroonese occupation of Ambazonia. But it looks like the French want what they want, regardless of the wishes of any people. The death toll of Ambazonia citizens caused by this policy of forced French occupation of an African country, a West African state for that matter, since the 1950s, is in the hundreds of thousands of Africans bleeding, dying for no wrong they have done to anyone. They are just citizens of a fledgling West African state nipped in the bud by French greed in the armpit of Africa. This is the monk from Ibalikumato for Ambazonia Calling.
Drum roll, please. And welcome to our Nyamfoka of the Week segment. We don't do foolish, but when there are capital fools out there, we make it our duty to find them, and every week we crown one of them the Nyamfoka of the Week.
We've gotten to that point on the program again when Veronique Ntumfoyn reviews the hit parade of the kings and queens of foolish for this week.
Finishing in third place this week is a man on the verge of entering the Hall of Infamy. His family name, Ngong, may have predisposed him more than others to mimic the misbehavior of the Ngong dog. Kapo Pamela, or Daniel Ngong, is not a newcomer to the hit parade of fools. He has won or has placed as one of the co-winners of this award thrice already. That feat has only been equaled by some of the biggest yam heads of La République du Cameroon, including all of those who have made it into the Ambazonia Calling Hall of Shame and Infamy. This week, Capo Daniel, speaking in his characteristic jam-pas-die mixture of broken English, pidgin, Mbunda French, broken com, and half-baked Agam, claimed to know more about the Swiss-led process than his chicken brain can hold. And to top it all, he gave himself powers to determine who will be able to set foot in Ambazonia and who will be banished from it. Well, every other Ngong dog in most villages knows when not to irritate, except of course Capo Daniel, whose shit no wipe last performance this week earned him the third place finish for the crown of shame, the Nyamfuka of the Week. Nyamfuka them all. Finishing in the position of runners-up is a top clergy of the Catholic Church in Ambazonia. Last week, he devoted time and energy to preparing and delivering a sermon that celebrated the need to work for peace, but lacked the courage to call out who exactly is waging the war in Ambazonia. The Archbishop of Bamenda, His Grace Andrew Nkea, spoke from the altar of God at the Bamenda Cathedral about the right of the colonial army occupying Ambazonia to use violence in self-defense without recognizing the same right for Amba boys. As for the Amba boys, he called on them to lay down their weapons. Archbishop Nkea preached eloquently about peace being a byproduct of justice, but called for action that consists of Ambazonians accepting to remain slaves under colonial domination of La République du Cameroon. In many ways, Archbishop Nkea accepted to use the pulpit to play politics with the lives of Ambazonians. He assumed a role that only a spokesperson for the Biya regime would take up, while abdicating the role Moses was sent by God to play in the liberation of the people of Israel from Egypt. For that reason, Archbishop Nkea is this week's second place finisher for the crown of shame, the Nyamfuka of the Week. Nyamfuka them all. Winning the crown of shame this week is a group of well-known, loud-sounding, full of air, front-row noisemakers in this revolution. Assuming their role as attack dogs for the ADF, the only civilized way the gang of Tapang Aivotanku and Co. found to discuss a story aired on Ambazonia Calling, and with which they held a contrary opinion to Ambazonia Calling. The only way these fellows found to express a different opinion, not to point out a different fact, was to pen hate mail, sacrifice politeness, and hope that it would be enough to intimidate Ambazonia Calling into never criticizing the ADF. Today's edition answers just how very well the bullying, brandishing of threats, and other attempts to obtain good press by intimidation have worked out. Tapang Aivotanku, who has not practiced journalism anywhere, can teach journalism to the ADF. But when it comes to Ambazonia Calling, his lectures in intimidation just earned him the crown of shame, the Nyamfuka of the week.
Nyamfuka them all.
This is Veronique Vertimfe for Ambazonia Calling.
Kinrani go ambia mi oh, we don't turn enemy see me my favunesi oh. Kinrani birambia mi oh, we don't enemy see me my favune undo. Wailunde, nkuma vishire fungu maveri lava kara wailundo. Akara yuvi chungi mbia miwora, lenvan viravi bifuk bao. Mbia me fana jikobo. Notify your brother, notify your brother. If we live like one family, we go conquer tomorrow. Notify your brother, notify your brother. If we live like one family, we go conquer tomorrow. Cause I believe in unity, cause I believe in unity.
Joining me now from Wuhan, China, is an artist, a singer, a poet, and a teacher, Ciprono Ciprono. Ciprono, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Ntumfoyn.
How have you been? You're coming out of what, hell?
Really, something like that. It has not been very, very easy with us here. We are just out of the lockdown, and the government of China really took a number of measures to bring everything to control. And we have really had it very tough here. So it has not been easy with us. Some kind of hell, you say.
We saw images, and there may have been, images of people already arriving at the hospital in desperate health situations. But we saw images of people just collapsing and dying in Wuhan. Could you describe, did you see any of that? Could you describe what it was like?
By the time that we were asked to stay at home, we had not come in contact with any of those cases. But there was one time that we saw cases like that on TV. And to say we really came in contact with those cases personally, I think I didn't experience that situation.
Let's try and use this interview. I want us to use it to help people at home in Ambazonia to understand what is at stake. Now, tell us, at the beginning, all of you thought this was a joke, was it?
Yeah, really, we couldn't imagine that we are going to be locked indoors for over 2 months. 3 months to be very precise. And it has not been very easy, I must tell you. It has not been easy. But thank God we have been safe for all this while. And I must say God has been very merciful to us.
The Chinese authorities just recently reopened Wuhan because they believe that the city has become safer. Are people going about their business? Has life returned to normal? Do you believe it is returning to normal?
You use the right word there. It is returning to normal, because today I was just out of the streets to see how everything was faring on, and I discovered that people are rather very, very skeptical to go out and their normal businesses. But at least life is picking up.
The Chinese authorities must have done something right to be reopening Wuhan. What did they put in place?
The government of China did quite a lot. For instance, they provided adequate information on the symptoms of the disease, so that if you happen to contract the disease, you will know exactly the symptoms. Then they took time off to educate the population to remain confined at home. And that is really what has made them to succeed.
What was the reaction of the population to being locked down?
The Chinese population has been very, very law abiding. Were it not of the fact that they are very law abiding, it wouldn't have been easy here. The Chinese authorities also created some apps to monitor the suspected cases. Once they were discovered, they made everything possible to fish them out and confine them in particular confinement areas. All suspected cases were taken immediately out of the community and quarantined for at least 2 weeks. They also did well to put in place community social workers to serve the population during self-isolation time, such that if you had anything to buy, you will use the social workers to buy for you.
So basically, you could call up a number and a social worker will come to your apartment, get your money or get your credit card, I don't know what, and then go and get your groceries, bring you some food from the store.
There were some numbers made available to all the communities, and if you were in any of these communities, you will and you needed any groceries, you will just simply have to dial the number. They come and they ask you what you need, then you tell them, they buy. Well, it is after when they buy before you are even asked to refund the money to them. So it was really, really wonderful. Apart from that, they also disinfected the environment in general. There was one point I discovered that they were also using drones. Can you imagine that? We're using drones to actually move around, monitor the situation, and even sensitize the population. If they saw you not wearing a mask, for instance, they will tell you to put on your mask. Even up to now that we have been declared almost corona-free, we cannot still go out without putting on the mask. Those are some of the ways that we have used to actually combat this pandemic.
Of all the measures that were put in place by the Chinese authorities, according to you, which was the most successful? Which is key to success?
The key issue here, I want to reiterate that the key issue here is self-isolation, self-confinement, to stay at home. Stay at home. I want to reiterate that because I think that it is really what has made us to succeed here.
If you hear, as you hear right now, with respect to what's going on in Ambazonia, that people are keeping bars open, people are going and mingling in markets. They're doing this during the day, and that at night, then they say there's a curfew. What would you say to people back at home?
There are no two ways to go by it. The first thing that they have to do is to remain at home, to stay at home, remain confined at home. Once they fall short of doing that, they should just know that anything can befall them at any time. They should stay at home. That's the first thing. Secondly, they should wash their hands regularly. Thirdly, if they must go, they must not. They shouldn't go without putting on their masks.
And a mask could just be a headscarf, a headscarf or someone's wrapper. I mean, anything that they can use so they don't directly breathe or they don't get in contact with someone sneezing or coughing.
Exactly. That's very important. Very important, because I know that back at home, many of them will find it very difficult or very, very difficult to have the masks. I know that because of the financial situation that they're going through. What you rightly say, the mask could be anything. They can even use their headscarves to come out with masks. There's nothing wrong with that.
Are there other things that the government did? For instance, people who are on salaries, did the government maintain their salaries to allow them to continue to survive?
that is really what the issue that we're still grappling with now, because we especially we, the foreigners working in Wuhan, let me say Wuhan because I don't know what really obtains in the rest of the rest of China. We were expecting that at least the government should do something to that effect, but they have been promising that they will only look into that after they're through with after the pandemic is over. So we, as of now, we are still not sure of what is going to obtain.
When you said earlier in this conversation that you were out today, was that your first time in how many days, how many months?
My first time in 3 months, actually. I just told myself that anyway, I kind of forgot myself. I told myself, if in a situation where I have to die, will I rise up to be moving about? Let me take this time and sacrifice myself. Sacrifice this time to take care of myself. After all, it's not all about hustling all the time.
I know you're a teacher, you're a poet, you're an artist, you're a songwriter and singer, and we've enjoyed your music on Ambazonia Calling and will continue to do so. Did you come up with any poems in this time? Did you come up with new music? Is there something Ambazonians should be looking forward to?
During this time that I confined myself at home, I came out with a number of poems, and if you will give me the privilege, I would like to even share one with you.
Absolutely. We are all takers here at Ambazonia Calling, and I'm sure all my people are across Ambazonia.
This is just a reminder that you have got to surrender from this earthly bustle and a continuous hustle, as if it's by might that you will win the fight. They say it's coronavirus, but I say it's humbler virus, for it has humbled all to a prostrate fall, crisscrossing all nations to non-negotiable oblations. The slogan stubbornly stands through the dweller's strands, spelling the prescription in a simple description: accept to be locked down or simply be knocked down. All our energy and intelligence we take for life's exigence and focus all on work, as if it depends all on work that we survive and live. Now tell me how to live. This is just a reminder to the hour-round pathfinder that hustling isn't anything, but humility is everything, as Mr. Corona's one blow compels the world to blow.
Thank you very much, Ciprono from out of Wuhan, China. Thanks for joining us. Take care of yourself. Stay safe.
Thank you very much, Ntumfoyn.
Show me the love for once and never. Where is the journey, love as a true friend and brother? Those who fight for freedom and run away shall live to fight another day, says Bob Marley, my big brother. You are a minister, you know that you have been chosen to work for the nation. You are a politician, you work for the people and not for the stomach. The masses are crying. Oh, man, you say there is no problem. Molestation, repression, suppression, assimilation. You say there is no problem, brother. Show me the love for once and I will never. Show me the love for once and I will never. Show me the love for once and I will never. Where is the genuine love as a true friend and brother? Show me the love for once and I will never. Show me the love for once and I will never. Show me the love for once and I will never. Where is the genuine love as a true friend and brother? The American liberators say, when injustice becomes law, resistance becomes a duty.
We are joined here on Ambazonia Calling from out of Germany, someone that you know very well, Barrister Elad Kizito Logan. He is the Chief of Staff for the IG. You're going to understand why I call him COVID patient number 001, the first person I knew who had COVID. Let me just welcome him first. Barrister, welcome.
Thank you, Senior Comrade Bose. Thank you very much. And
Before anything, let me thank you for the great job you're doing with Ambazonia Calling and the energy and time you've taken to educate our people on this pandemic that we're facing. And thank God I'm alive. And as you said, patient number 001.
We've been having meetings regularly. You were connected with me all the time. We were writing to each other all the time. And all of a sudden there was silence radio. And then I find out that you have been sick. Tell our people what happened to you.
Yes, as this COVID-19 started and schools were closed down, so my children were home, offices, workplaces, everything was closed. So we were home from the 17th to when I was now officially known as the COVID-19 patient number 1, as you said, on the 20th of March. It was 3 days after I was home with the children, and we always get up in the morning and do some sport. So I thought maybe I've not been doing sport for so long, and maybe these 3-4 days I've been doing sport. That's why bones are broken and so. I got up on Saturday. I was broken. My knees, my head, fever, very weak. And I was like, what is happening? My wife touched me and said, your skin is so warm, and brought the thermometer. I took my temperature, and I realized it was already going to 39. I just took it easy. It was a Saturday, so I went to the pharmacy and got some paracetamol, came back home. Sunday, it was not moving. Monday, I went to we call it the house doctor. They told me, oh, no, it's just surely some flu. Things will be okay. I should get some paracetamol, and that's it. And they gave me a sick leave. I came back home. During the evenings, it was getting worse and worse every day. The Tuesday now, we have an hotline number that you call if you think you're sick and you think it's corona. So I called the number and explained everything, and they said, no, this is the way I put it is surely not a corona. That is how it goes. Just to make things short, Wednesday, it was getting worse every day, and then Thursday, I had to go back and to the doctor. The doctor said, no, we cannot take you now. Your case is very serious. I should go to the hospital. Went to the hospital. Then the testing has not been so serious. I was not tested, just gave me some drugs. And then the next day, sent me back home. Came home Friday. It doesn't go. I called the ambulance. The ambulance came right to me, checked me, looked at me and said, no, it's this and this. We cannot, it's not that serious. We cannot take you to your hospital now. You will not be admitted. The hospital is full and all that. So fast tracking, that is how it went until I was up and down with the coronavirus hotline number and the hospital and the ambulance until the 29th. I left the hospital on a Saturday, the 28th, came home. It was that was the epic of the whole thing. I mean, I saw death. People say when someone is dying, you know. I saw death. I saw myself dying. My family started here crying. And then my daughter took the phone now on Sunday and called the ambulance and then shouted at them. They came, saw me on the bed. They said, no, we are going. And that's how I landed in the hospital with a very serious COVID-19 symptoms.
The explanation you give just gives us the 14 days. So it starts on the 15th. On the 29th, you are absolutely out. You're feeling like you're going to die.
What these people call incubation period is something that I don't understand. Because when they say they put you 14 days, and I don't know if they give you medicine, but I was here. They were telling me to take paracetamol and vitamin C and all that. It never helped an inch. I had constant headache. My head was pumping inside like nothing. I mean, you sleep, you still feel the headache. Temperature, my spine, my waist was like going to cut into two. Nothing. I cannot stand on my leg. I managed to and have had some bath my eyes started turning. My family had to hold me and rush me to the bed. So this is something that people should take very serious. It's death. The pandemic is very serious. I was here. I couldn't breathe. I shouted. I called my daughter. I said, open all the windows. Please open me the window. She did open all the windows, all the doors. There was no air coming through my nose.
So also you were cut off on the breathing side. You had difficulties.
Of course, that is the worst part of it. That is when these people came in, they met my pressure, and they saw that things are not going. They took me away immediately. And luckily, because the doctor told me if I would have made again 20 minutes on the way, she's sorry, things would have been dangerous. My house is the last house, the next building, which is the second best hospital, as I read in Germany, called Sana Klinikum. The ambulance just took me about some 50 to 100 meters to the hospital, which myself, I couldn't walk. My family could not carry me there. And thanks to these doctors and medics, nurses, in fact, these people are our heroes. I mean, now in this situation, they are great. I don't know how to thank them. Just thank you is a very understatement.
We cannot thank these doctors enough. I mean, people have fought world wars and all of that, but this is a war of another kind. We could just say this is a biological and a chemical war put together, plus maybe satanic curse on the earth for turning its back on God, and they are fighting that war on our behalf. For all of us, we have to just say, we are in your debt.
Exactly.
What about your family? They were caring for you so closely. Did anybody get contaminated, or they're fine?
That is the situation that wonders me even today. I watched CNN today, and the same report was given on CNN. 5 men, young guys on the age of 30, not even my age mate, are older, far more than them, caught this COVID-19, and none of their wives and children ever had it. 2 of them died, their soul rest in peace, and 3 survived. None of their family member got it. And that is the same thing that happened here in my house. The wife is strong, tested negative. The children, they are all fine, nothing. But I was the only one.
And luckily you've come through it. Your plasma is probably going to offer something to science, and maybe your family staying healthy in the middle of taking care of you will also offer to science potentially antibodies that the rest of us will need to defeat this pandemic.
It's true. And the thing is, especially back home, I'm lucky, and I'm saying it every day. I told you that I'm one of the luckiest person living on earth today, because I saw death and I went through it. Because even in the hospital, when I was brought there, I was unconscious. I was put under oxygen, intensive care for 3 good days before I recovered and could realize where I was again. Then take, for example, Ambazonia, that our healthcare system is so devastating. I'm just asking those back home in Ambazonia to be really, really careful and respect the social distancing and put on their mask and wash their hands. They should not joke about it. I'm saying this because this thing is killing people. It's not a joke. It doesn't look for race, black, white, Hispanic, Arab, whatever. It hits everyone. Because I was asked a question at the hospital, where do you think you caught it? It was a question I cannot answer. Before the countries became serious, all this thing was already around. I was moving with the subway. I was going to work. I was going to conferences. I was doing things. So you don't know where it came from. I cannot give any specifics.
And you were one of the most careful people. You were wearing a mask before the world woke up to masks, weren't you?
Thank you. I was the first one. I will not say the first because I was not all over Germany. I was one of the first people. I would say when I started putting on masks in Berlin, I never saw any single person with a mask for almost 2 weeks. You remember, we were supposed to travel, and I was the one warning people concerning the COVID-19. I was sending out videos and audios and telling people to take this serious, and I was the first to be hit.
Well,
so that's life.
Let's say I'm glad that we are getting this opportunity for you to share this message with our people on the ground. We're going to go now, but I just want you again to re-emphasize for our people on the ground. You've got a message for them. Let's give them that message as briefly as possible. And I want you to finish up with that message in your own national dialect. Please stay home. Wash your hands. If you go out, wear a mask.
Put mask.
Keep away from crowds. No market, no cried eye.
Market song. Kamungui.
Stay safe. I am speaking to you like one who caught the disease. So thank you very much, and bye-bye. Please take care of yourself. Take care of the family.
Okay. Thank you, senior comrade. And please, Ambazonians, listen to Ambazonia Calling. Please stay safe and stay healthy.
Wow, I'm in love with Empire.
Coronavirus, tormenting human race like no one has done it before. Mama mia, si baloke. Coronavirus, creating dirty moments everywhere in the world. Wine come for life. Coronavirus, tormenting human race like no one has done it before. Mama mia, si baloke. Coronavirus, creating dirty moments everywhere in the world.
We have excerpts from an interview by His Royal Highness Professor Wilfred Bacham, who is a professor of public health and biotechnology in the Cameroons. He starts off in the interview by indicating what hope there is for a cure.
Well, I guess there are a number of things that have come to the limelight lately. I guess the first and foremost is the fact that hydroxychloroquine plus azithromycin and the addition of vitamin C is part of the mixture together with antiviral drugs that can cure. And that's virtually the French formula, which the United States has also adopted. But recently we also learned that Russia is using mefloquine and using penicillin. I guess lately you might have heard, at least in the test tubes, they've shown that the drug against river blindness or onchocerciasis, which is called ivermectin, has been shown to also kill the virus. And I guess this is good news. It will still take a long while for it to come into clinical trials in humans, but at least it's good news that another molecule has been found. Again, that was previously against a parasite and now is being used to fight this COVID-19. The other evolution has been that the United States Academies of Sciences have been pushing for the FDA to authorize the use of convalescent plasma. So they get plasma from people who are convalescing, and they're able to administer this to newly infected with dramatic results. And I think that this is something, it's not totally new. This is how Nigeria was able to fight its own Ebola when Ebola erupted in Nigeria and kept the cases below very low numbers. Some of our traditional remedies can actually mimic the same things that people are doing. The first of them, which I had spoken about, is lemongrass or fever grass and bitter leaf, and also the aloe vera. And when I look at these and see that they do mimic the current protocols for treatment, then I can only but endorse partially what the traditional doctors can do. Why do I say partial? Partial because we still need to determine a lot of things, the hygienic conditions under which these have to be administered, but also the fact that we need to know the dosing and that there are no other side elements that may cause deleterious side effects. But what also stems out of that is the fact that in these mixtures also there are antioxidants and antitoxins which are being used. And in that regard, I think we have a multiplicity of plants that can do this kind of thing. We have things like moringa, we have things like the baobab powder, we have things like the kenkeliba, we have plants like cloves, even soursop. But there's another plant which is both an antimicrobial but is also very good against cough, all types of cough. I don't know, one of the symptoms of COVID is cough. And this is called mbanga in my Meta language, but it's the zimalus, and I think that this should also be tried by those who can. And my intention here is to give new directions by trying to connect the dots. They're using vitamin C, which is a free radical, and they are also in the United States. They added zinc and found out that 700 people who had the infection were cured. And what that tells me is that I should be eating foods that are rich in zinc and in vitamin C. And there are quite a few around, like citrus fruits, like the red bell peppers, like broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, parsley, tomatoes, green peas, papaya. I would add this to my daily intake so that if there's anything that is COVID, I should be able to beat it down. Some of these things are made into teas. For example, the kenkeliba is a tea. Moringa now, there is a tea that's in moringa. And to that, some people have added cloves. And I think that even fever grass, there's a fever grass tea. So some of these exist already as teas. And why not? I do encourage people to take those. And who knows what could help you.
It is so unfortunate we cannot give credit to who conducted this initial interview. We found it on WhatsApp. It's a great piece of work, so congratulations, whoever did this. There's plenty of commentary and analysis still to come, so don't go anywhere.
Yes, ground zero lives matter. The lives of our people being slaughtered on ground zero matter a lot. The earlier we stand up and hug and kiss and love the uncomfortable truth and do the right thing and stop personality worshipping, we have to put our people first.
I am Innocentia, and you are listening to Ambazonia Calling, where we urge you in these unprecedented times of coronavirus to keep away from crowds, even crowd-eyes, stay away from bars, avoid handshakes, wash your hands regularly and thoroughly, worship God from home. Remember that God quarantined Noah and his family in the ark. Wear a mask when out. They are easy to make. Lead in the fight to stay alive. Don't follow the crowds like a fly to the grave.
There's no one better to describe what is going on inside those wards than a nurse in the front lines, caring for those thousands of patients of coronavirus. In a place like the United States, the number now is climbing to 40,000 people killed. So this is a serious situation for my people in Ambazonia. You have to stay on lockdown. But listen here to what a nurse has to say after stepping out for a little break from the ward.
I've cried so many tears this morning alone. I had to step outside of work to catch some air. The virus is real. I see it with my own eyes. It's attacking people. It is attacking people. It's attacking people. People are fine one day and they gone the next. These people, they can't even see their family. They haven't seen their family in weeks. They dying by themselves. All they got is me. I can only be so strong. I can only comfort them so much. They depressed. They worry. I just see so many families cry. It's taking a toll on me. I can't even get my words together. Y'all, please stay at home. Stay at home. Love on the people that's with you, that you quarantine with. Like, love on them. People are here one day and gone in two. I can't sleep. I'm barely eating. Because you're just seeing it destroying lives. When you see something destroy lives in front of you and there's nothing that you can do, you can't turn left, you can't turn right. It's literally in God's hands. Like, when there's nothing that you can do, it takes a toll on you. I ain't gonna lie. I feel like quitting, just going to sit home. But I know if they don't have nobody, they got me. And God didn't put me in this position. He didn't put me at this place and time for me to give up or for me to be weak. But God, I just ask that you heal the land right now, God. Please, God. Whatever's going on, God, I know you can just wipe it away with one word. God, just take it away, man. This is real. It's just something I ain't never seen before in my life. But God is able. And He's able. Some people are going to turn around. I believe in a turnaround. It's just, this is a lot. I got a lot on me. Thank y'all for letting me vent, but I just need y'all to stay at home. Because y'all don't know what y'all doing to these people who can't handle the virus. Stay at home, stay clear.
Africa cannot and will not be a testing ground for any vaccine. We will follow all the rules to test any vaccine or therapeutics all over the world using exactly the same rule. Whether it's in Europe, Africa, or wherever, we will use the same protocol, and if there is a need to be tested elsewhere, to treat human beings the same way, equally. And the hangover from a colonial mentality has to stop. And WHO will not allow this to happen.
For more stories from around the world, go to the World Wide Web at themissionstribune.com, compassfreepress.com, and africafreedomnetwork.com.
Hello, this is Willie Brother Day, and you're listening to Ambazonia Calling.
The coronavirus pandemic has completely changed the way we interact. It may change our world forever. It has already changed conflict, with for the first time a global ceasefire on a unilateral basis being invited from the podium of the United Nations, and heeded to by a good number of armed groups across the world. The monk from Ibalikumato is still here. He's got that next paper for us.
COVID-19 has now taken over the world and is fundamentally changing the way humans interact with each other. The United Nations Secretary General has sounded the alarm for wars to stop in these circumstances where hygiene and self-isolation are the primary steps to stop the spread of the virus before a vaccine is available for everyone in the world. And that could be a while. Now here's the question for Ambazonia. Will the government of Franco Cameroon heed to the call of the United Nations Secretary General to stop wars? Will the government of Franco Cameroon stop the human rights abuses and ongoing genocide of Ambazonia citizens? Without being an alarmist, I want to bet that they will not. Why? History. A trail of the history of the Cameroons will reveal a panoply of dysfunctional policies that look good on paper but do not cook beans on the ground for anyone. Decrees that have no legs are as good as no decrees at all. COVID-19 cannot, will not be decreed away. All over the world, professionals are actually doing work not decreed by some lazy dictator, but by the ethical commitments of their profession to save lives. If the government of Franco Cameroon continues the genocide of Ambazonia citizens in a context where the COVID-19 virus is taking down humans willy-nilly, then it would be to reaffirm and confirm what citizens have thought, said about the Franco-Cameroonese policies on Ambazonia, the genocide and annihilation of the Ambazonia people, no matter what the matter. This puts Ambazonia citizens in a situation. Fight for survival by any means necessary, and that is where the journey of overcoming begins. Remember the cycle: suffering, struggling, and overcoming. Franco-Cameroonese human rights abuses and genocide, plus COVID-19, one after the other. Ambazonian citizens have no other option but to overcome them, self-defend when attacked, and self-isolate to keep COVID-19 away. At the end of the day, Ambazonia needs all its citizens standing. We have suffered, we are struggling, and we will overcome Franco-Cameroonese intransigence and COVID-19. This is the monk from Ibalikumato for Ambazonia Calling.
Ambazonia Calling. You are in the heart of the news shrine. Call us the Kalakuta Republic of commentary, opinion, and editorials.
This is Ambazonia Calling.
Because you have your army of occupation out in West Cameroon, you believe that when the people will rise, even if you took the whole of the French army and added to yours, you will never bring them down.
And I call on all Cameroon soldiers to lay down their arms within Ambazonia and to turn their arms against the very system that has made them slaves in the land of their birth.
For more stories from around the world, go to the World Wide Web at themissionstribune.com, compassfreepress.com, and africafreedomnetwork.com.
Here is our letter to Joshua.
Dear Joshua, finally, hooray! I know how to prepare from scratch, write, edit, and send a high-tech multimedia letter. The reason I'm sending this letter is that I was surprised to see that you now apparently care enough to seek to respond to rumors. That is what I had warned you about. You cannot ignore rumors that want to put you to rest. Either you put them to rest or they will lay you to rest. Still, I was amazed to see that you were troubled enough to arrange a session in Ngola to satisfy the curiosity of those who, even after seeing you, now believe even more firmly than before that you are of blessed memory. You chose to make an apparition The young Nigerian TV personality, Adeola, was already having herself a field day.
So if anyone has seen the president, please.
When you get finally to listen to the kind of mockery that the likes of Adeola made of you while you were missing in action.
Because they cannot find their presidents at home or abroad. So you didn't hear it from you, but some of them are saying that maybe Koro has visited His Excellency.
You will wish to God that your death was not giving so many such great delight.
And we don't know where the president is. Who is even running the country is what I don't understand.
You know how it is said that you do not wish something bad even on your worst enemy. Forget that. There is nothing too bad that the people of the Cameroons have not already wished on you. I mean, just FYI, for your information, while you were dead briefly, we received copies of your first musical single. It plays like a great song.
Oh yes, Malonto présidentiel, seconde partie. Le fantôme vous parle. Chantou, laisse parler les gens. Le fantôme est toujours vivant.
Inspired by your Bamileke folklore, the Fangbulu Betty Step, and the great Mangambe Rythme de Chez Nous, your song is already top on the hit parade in every bar that has been closed down as a result of the coronavirus. If you were alive, you would know that right now, we are focused on preventing the spread of the coronavirus. I mean, with a hit like this, what are you talking about? I can hear you insisting that you cannot allow young men like George Weah Opong of Liberia to release singles while you are still napping in the coffin.
Mets-toi de côté. Allez, Kungwedima, est-ce que toi tu as appris que je suis devenu fantôme sur Internet?
The awkward situation at the palace in Gola the other day could have been avoided. Who else gets the envoy of the Hexagon to show up in the same clothes, same shoes, same shirt, same trousers, same jacket 2 times in a row at the palace in Gola? Now, the one video that was meant to show to the entire world that you are indeed alive, not dead, has been ruined by the amateurs. Your video was so wickedly true of the ghost that instead of settling the outstanding questions, it raised fresh ones. That is why you saw your friends, Romans, and countrymen come out of the woodwork, not to bury Joshua, but to mock him, restaging the raising of Lazarus to life as part of the plan.
Lazarus!
The video, herewith included, shows Jesus calling out from outside the tomb for Lazarus to rise and come forth.
Come forth.
We can see Lazarus rise in the video, but it is just at that point that the Hollywood producer of this segment turns to the palace in Gola and captures someone arriving slowly to take up position at the table and wait for the envoy from the Hexagon. I know the question you want me to ask all these specialists in rumor who are causing you so much misery and grief. But hey, why do you think I would try again? The confusion is not only coming from the opposition. Your own people asked me the following question when I asked after you. They said, why do you want us to look for the dead among the living?
From our studios here in Washington, D.C., our producer is Jeff McCoy. Our music today is from Ken Wanaku, the monk from Balikumato, William Ford, an ambassador of blessed memory, Eric Matisse on the web at soundimage.org, and Prince Ajua Alemanji of Ajam Sonic Kitron, USA. Ambazonia Calling is a joint production of Africa Freedom Network, the Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. You can find us on the web at www.themissionstribune.com, www.compassfreepress.com, and www.africafreedomnetwork.com. Next Sunday is another day. Until then, keep the spirit, keep the faith, keep up the fight for justice and independence for Ambazonia. Stay Amba strong.